John here. In this video, I'm going to step you through a new website, a new project, a case study, which I am trying as hard as I can to publish 1 million words of content in 3 months on a freshly registered domain. So here's the video outline. I'll go through in detail what the million word case study really is all about. And then I'm going to go into a content production snag that I've recently encountered. I'm almost 200 articles in, and I've got a snag, and I'm going to explain what that problem is. It's actually a very good problem. And then I'm going to explain the solution. And the reason the problem and the solution is actually relevant more than to just this site is it's something that could come up with anybody who's publishing content on the web. And so I want to step you through that. And I think in particular go through the solution, because the solution is the important part to this. So what is the 1 million words in 3 months? So on September 2, 2021, I launched a new site. It's site 12 in the income reports, although it has no income at this point because I haven't put ads on it. That's an experiment, and it's answering the question is what happens if we really front load a website, a freshly registered domain, absolutely loaded up with content in the first 3 to 6 months. So my goal is 1,000 articles in 3 months. I'm on track, not quite to hit that, but I'll be pretty close. So I'm happy about that. And by year end, in 12 months, I'm hoping to have 3,000 published articles. Again, that could be a stretch. It would be awesome if I hit it, and if it hit on all cylinders and things are really working at the 6-month mark where it's worth continuing investing, a best case scenario would be 5,000 articles by year end. But I think that's going to be very, very unlikely, because I'm going to assess this pretty carefully at month 6. And if I'm getting crickets, if this thing's going nowhere by month 6 after publishing 1,000 to 2,000 articles, and clearly the whole thing is a failed experiment. So at this point, I can only speculate where it's going to go, but I do think it's pretty interesting. I'm actually having fun with this project. So the whole concept here is really high volume publishing. Basically, I'm going after as many really easy to rank for keywords as possible, publishing content. Now, you got to keep in mind, this content is not the best content in the world. It's not costing me a whole lot because I'm ordering so much at one time. I'm getting it for very, very low rate per word. But admittedly, this is not the super excellent, awesome, epic content that I usually try to publish on my other sites. This is not that. Let's just put it that way. Okay, it's pretty good. I think it'll work, and that's the whole point. I want to see what happens when we publish this level of content. The topics are pretty easy to produce for, but what happens when we front load an absolute ton? And basically, the goal for monetization is going to be display ads and just rank for as many keywords as fast as possible, get traffic, and just earn from the display ads. It's a pretty simple concept. So as I said, September 22 was the launch date. That was when the very first article was published. I actually wrote it. It's a fresh domain registration. You can see here, as of today, I have a total of published 135 articles and 50 in draft, which is cool. So we'll get those done in a day or two. So we are exactly at the 3-week mark, and we're almost at 200 published articles. So I think it's going to work out pretty good, because it took about a week to get the content production team up to speed with exactly what I wanted. So in the last 2 weeks, they've published an absolute ton. So as I mentioned, I'm targeting extremely easy to rank keywords. And as you can see here already, by week 2, I got first organic search visitor. It was September 16. Okay, so I'm getting fast results because I'm actually going after keywords that aren't even covered on web. I'm talking, I've found a lot of keywords that aren't mentioned or covered or written about in forums, videos, blog posts, anything. Okay, it's sort of like the holy grail of keywords. Now, the $1 million question when you find these keywords is it going to generate enough traffic? Is there enough searches for these keywords to warrant the cost of the content and be economically viable? This is all something I'm going to suspend any conclusion and wait at least until month 6, but realistically, I'm not going to be able to come to any real conclusion about this until month 12, so it's far down the road. But I think it's going to work out economically, but I've been wrong many times before. Now, so I've cranked out quite a bit of content here. We're getting that published as fast as possible, but there is a problem, okay? Because I'm going after such obscure long-tail keywords that basically nobody else has covered on the web, they emailed me and said it's become impossible to find similar content online for research, slowing down the pace at which we can deliver. Okay, So they didn't say they couldn't deliver. They said they had to slow down. So I could deal with that. That just will sort of slow down the whole front end loading of the whole thing, and I could deal with that. That's fine. Okay, but it's not ideal, and I worry that they may potentially even bail or want to increase the cost of the content because it's turning out to be more difficult for them than they anticipated. The thing is it's a good problem. Okay, I did my job. I found, I'm not kidding here, tens of thousands of keywords with zero competition. Okay, with zero competition means there's really nothing out there for anybody to research to try to put content together. Okay, so that's their problem. So this is really good for a high volume publishing because basically it's like super easy to rank. But, as I already mentioned, it's either going to slow down or end production of content. So I told them that the reason I chose all those topics because they aren't covered online. I mean, that's the whole point, right? Nevertheless, I needed to come up with a solution. So there aren't just tens of thousands of keywords with no competition. There are billions, okay? Think about that. There literally are billions of keywords out there with no competition, which is pretty exciting for those of us who publish niche websites or any type of website, really, where you're trying to get traffic with SEO. So the beauty of ad monetization, by the way, is, I can pretty much write about any topic I want, not worry about it making money because I'm just going to let the ads do the money making. I don't have to think about, okay, well, will this topic convert with affiliate offers and all that? I don't have to worry about that. If it's relevant to the niche, I can publish on it. And that opens it wide open for me in terms of the flexibility in terms of topics that I can go after. And hence, this entire project is possible. I would never attempt something like this if my main monetization mode was affiliate offers. You want to be much more surgical about that. But for this, it's totally going to work. So the solution that I came up with when the topics aren't covered on the web is I needed to teach and instruct my content provider to approach the topics differently. Okay, this is all very cryptic. This doesn't make any sense. I'm going to step you through an example actually about how to do this. But what I needed to do and what the writers need to do is they need to figure out how they're going to get the information to answer the question that the topics pretty much all pose, and they're going to so that they can actually find the information they need. Okay, so basically it's like a leveling up in terms of research, which is really good because this is how you get more of the unique content on the web, and it actually makes for a much more interesting website. So I had to sit and think about it. And in fact, what really inspired me to come up with a solution that I ultimately did come up with was from a reader named Randy Ray, who emailed me. I sent the bulk of this information as an email not so long ago. And basically he said this: years ago, when I was heavy into the poker affiliate niche, I hired some writers to do thorough reviews of the card rooms at various Vegas casinos. They were supposed to include the number of tables the games being played and the limits. One of the writers came back and said they couldn't find that information online. I told them to call the card room and ask the manager for the info. The writer quit, but that was a rich source of traffic because no one else was willing to make a few phone calls to get the info. That is an amazing bit of information if you're in the content game, because if you will think a little bit differently or approach getting content and as well as coming up with topics for your website a little differently than what other people do or are willing to do, you have a huge advantage. That gives your entire website a big advantage. So I needed to approach this content problem from a different angle, okay? And this email actually really helped me come up with a solution because it was 20 minutes later, the solution came to me. Now, obviously, the telephone wasn't the answer. I wasn't going to start calling for the information. Besides, that's not really a viable solution for the type of problem I faced, okay? Reframing the topic was the solution. So the best way I can explain that is with an example. So this is a totally different niche. This is the example is nowhere close to related to what the actual site is. I'm not gonna share the niche for this project. So suppose I want to publish an article on the topic, are Ford F-150 trucks good in the snow? Okay. So let's further suppose no website or video forum answers that question. There is absolutely nothing on the web about whether Ford F-150 trucks are going to snow. Now, we know that that's a fiction. We know there's tons of information. Just bear with me. It's just serving as an example. So let's pretend for illustration's sake. All right. So if not answered on the web, how do we get that information? Okay. So we got to assume that test driving is not feasible. Okay, one way obviously is you can go out, wait for the snow, go to the Ford dealership, test drive, come up with an opinion. Okay, now that's not really economically feasible. That's the best way to go about it, but you're probably not going to do that for a very low competition, low search volume keyword like that necessarily, okay? But, if you want to, by all means, go ahead, because that will result in an excellent article, especially if you maybe do a video and some photos and all that, okay? But most people aren't going to do that. Now, writers aren't going to do that, and they're likely not going to be able to call the dealerships and ask a salesperson their opinion about the how good F-150s are in the snow. So where does that leave us? Okay, the last option is basically you want to ask the question, what features on a vehicle make it good in the snow? Okay, so we're approaching it from a different angle. We need to actually think about this. Okay, so when you ask that question, you're going to come up with various answers, but probably the most obvious would be like four-wheel drive, or even all-wheel drive. These are features of a vehicle that would make them good in the snow. It's obvious. Right now there are other features as well, like maybe front-wheel drive is a little bit better than just rear-wheel drive, but at the end of the day, it's safe to assume that a four-wheel drive vehicle is going to potentially be quite good in the snow. Now, we're not talking about snow tires or not, we're just talking about performance of the vehicle itself, okay, in the snow. So if we know that four-wheel drive is a feature for being able to drive well in the snow, and we can then basically ask the question, does a Ford F-150 have four-wheel drive? And the answer is yes, they do. Okay, so we basically got to answer the initial question, the problem we want to deal with, the topic we want to write about, by sort of stepping back and then reframing the question, and then from that we can make it a reasonable assumption. Okay, this is an assumption, right? We're assuming that four-wheel drive vehicles will perform better in the snow than, say, two-wheel drive. But that's a safe assumption. That's a pretty realistic assumption. It's probably not 100% of the time. Maybe it is. I don't know. I'm not a real truck or car person, but I think it's a safe assumption. And so what you could say in your article is you can say, well, here's some statistics about the performance of, or safety, or the better performance of vehicles with four-wheel drive. They tend to be in far fewer accidents in the snow. So we can assume that vehicles with four-wheel drive are going to perform better in the snow. We know that the Ford F-150 has a four-wheel drive, and therefore it is very likely going to be an excellent vehicle in the snow. Okay, and that's how we approach it. So that's exactly what I had to figure out, and that's exactly what I did to solve the content problem that I had. I immediately set out to create a training video and an outline for the content providers and showed them it's basically like a three-step process to arrive and find and ferret out the information that is online, to extrapolate from all different types of content that's asked from a result of a different type of search, pull that content out, put it in a blog post. So it's going to rely on many, many sources, which is really what a blog post should do, right? So we're basically creating this really cool article based on anywhere from 10 to 15 different sources out in the web. We're going to give full attribution to all of them as we're pulling out little snippets of little information to put together the main article, and it's going to be excellent. It's easy. It's going to be very easy, even though we're relying on many sources. There's almost like a cookie cutter approach to it. So for me, it's a great solution. It's going to be able to speed up production, I believe, as well as result in much better content. Okay, so what happens if you aren't able to do what I just stepped you through in terms of rephrasing the question or trying to approach it from a different sort of content or analysis to get that information? What if that's not going to work for you? Okay, so there are other solutions to come up with information for a lot of different keywords. Okay, now if you have existing traffic or an email newsletter, one really good source is to run polls and quizzes, and you can get information from your own readers, and they'll answer it. And this is really good information, and usually a lot of the poll and quiz software will create these cool charts and tables and all this stuff that you can basically screenshot and put in your articles. And you can come up with anything you want. You can ask any question you want of them, and if you get enough, maybe if you get 100 responses, that's fairly representative. Maybe you get 1,000. I don't know. You want to obviously disclose the question that you put to your audience and how many responses you got when you put this information in a post, because some people might say, oh, well, you only got like 8 responses. That's hardly representative or statistically significant. Or you could say, I got 12,000, and probably nobody would question about whether it's statistically significant, because that's a lot of responses. So you want to put that information in there, okay? Another option is to do outreach. Now, I've done this quite a bit in the past, and basically really, let's say you have a particular question or a topic that you don't have the answer to, and most of the information out there is not very good, a simple way to get the good information is to send some emails out to experts within the niche and ask them. And I've done this many, many times for content, and basically the experts write the content, they'll email me back. I usually send them a short list of questions. Don't ask them 15 questions because they're going to ignore you. It's too much work. Ask them like 2 or 3 questions, the salient questions. And you can ask different questions of different experts so that maybe you can create even a longer type of article that basically writes itself. And I find I always mention, hey, I'll give you a link to your site as a result, as a source, and my site gets X number of readers every month, blah, blah, blah. And I find the response rates to be fairly good. And I've had some really good articles come as a result of this process. Not only that, they basically wrote it because we just copied and pasted their answers into the article. Next up, you can do site visits. I'm not talking about website visits. I'm talking about actually hiring a writer to go visit a particular site to get the information you need, or you go yourself. And I've done this. One interesting cluster I did a couple of years ago, just before COVID hit, was we were writing about various national chains of a type of store within a niche. And I live in Canada. I didn't really have access to these stores, so I needed to hire a writer to do it. And I found a writer who basically lives out of the RV, and they drive around the U.S. in various camping spots. She was perfect, and she was really excited to do it. I was paying a pretty good rate per word because she was going to spend a bunch of time at these stores and take photos and write about it and did all that. And the write-ups were fantastic. We got like amazing photos and the whole thing. Those articles perform really, really well to this day. And it was just a result of just taking that extra step of just going to the store and getting the actual first-hand information to be able to write about those various stores. And yes, you can use the telephone. In some situations, telephone could be really, really valuable in getting information for your content. Okay, so with a little ingenuity, you can come up with novel content idea that nobody else is covering, and or get the actual content for those topics that's better than anything else on the web. Now, I'm going to wrap it up briefly with just mentioning, some of you might be asking, I could just see it coming in the comments below, but well, how do you go about doing the keyword research to find these basically zero competition keywords? Well, first off, I'm not going to give away the farm here because that's actually a very, very important major component in the FatStacks course bundle course that you can go to fatstacksblog.com and you can check it out, and you'll find the courses and get it there. So I'm not going to reveal all there, but really it boils down to a lot of really digging. You don't want to just put a seed word in, whether you use Ahrefs or Ubersuggest or whatever keyword software tool you use, and just start choosing from the first list that's presented. Okay, that's pretty superficial. You want to really dig deep. You want to take keywords, you replug them in, and then you want to take more keywords from that result and you plug them in. And I note all this down. I note what I'm doing. I usually have literally 10 Ahrefs tabs open, and I'm running keywords through over and over and over all day long when I do this. And I'm trying to find those golden keywords that basically have very little competition, have some search volume. I don't require much search volume because I usually find I'm going to get a lot more traffic than what's reported anyway. But this is how I'm finding a lot of really good keywords. Now, it's pretty rare that I find tens of thousands of keywords within a niche that basically have almost no competition. That's pretty rare, so don't expect that to happen. I tend to still go after keywords where there is some competition. That's the reality. Okay, but the other reality is there are billions of keywords with no competition. The only problem is the keyword research we use is based on what's already on the web. Right? It can't guess in a vacuum. That's the problem with keyword research tools, is they don't know what isn't there already in the web that they can crawl. So that's a major disconnect between keyword research tools and reality. If you can figure out how to tap those billions of searches that people are doing that nobody really knows about, well, then you have a tremendous advantage. So if you want to learn a little bit more, if you want to find out more about the actual long tail keyword research methods I use, you can go to fatstacksblog.com there in yellow, and then from there you can click through to the paid course. You can get the free course, whatever. And I do appreciate you taking the time to watch and or listen to this video. Thank you.